Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 32. We had been reading, Nārada Muni has been speaking to Vyāsadeva. Etad suchitam brahmams.
Etat suchitam brahman
Taptraya chikitsitam.
Tapatraya chikitsitam.
chikitsitam
Yad Ishware Bhagavati.
Yat
Yad
Ishware
Ishware
Bhagavati.
Karma Brahmani Bhavitam.
Karma
Karma
Brahmani
Brahmani
Bhavitam.
Bhavitam.
Would somebody like to read?
Yeah, I can read.
Please.
O Brahmana Vyāsadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Purport. Sri Nārada Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the threefold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation with other living beings. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries. But men do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or remedial measure can actually bring about the desired place and tranquility. The remedial measure to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. To cross the river or the ocean by a suitable boat is no remedial measure if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all pervading, all powerful, omniscient, and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent of all good or bad effects. We should therefore learn to dedicate our activities unto the mercy of the Lord and accept Him either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is, one must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry him and try to become like him or take his position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. If one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight, but when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. Similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturist, etc., then one should spend his hard earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayan, or the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayan and be happy. That is the way to realize the Lord in every sphere of life. The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such an opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction, and that is the way of peace and prosperity. The word samshuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narad is a childish imagination only. It is not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of the word samsuchitam.
So here Narad Muni is speaking to Vyasadeva and he is giving him a remedy. You see, this material world, the kalayam, ashasvatam, Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, that we are all afflicted by miseries here. It's a place of suffering and it's temporary. And every living entity is subjected to three types of miseries at every moment. Any of the three types of miseries by body, mind, or other living entities, or natural phenomena. So here, Narad Muni is telling to Vyasadeva, what's the remedy to get out of this misery? That is, dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And in this way, one can actually become peaceful. So Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that to get relief, one needs to submissively hear from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, hear from the right and bona fide sources. So hear from the devotees, hear about the Supreme Lord, hear the glories of the Supreme Lord, submissively. And in this way, gradually, all our miseries will be mitigated. We are trying to find solution to the problems. We can see the whole material civilization. That's why there's so much material advancement we have done as a civilization. We have done great advancement, great science, technology, medicine, lot, but we can still see people are still suffering. There are wars going on. There's protests right now, currently where we are, there's protests. And then there is, so much unrest in people. That's the reason there's wars or protests. So in spite of such great advancement, there's still so much dissension among people because we have moved away from God. So what we need to do is to hear about the Supreme Lord, His glories, His pastimes, His name. Understand that He is, here Prabhupada is mentioning some qualities of the Lord. And one of it is, can somebody point out what are the qualities of the Lord? Few qualities of the Lord Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, that why we should work for the pleasure of the Lord. In the purport, we can
Because
see some of them.
the Lord is all pervading, no? All powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
this quality, omniscient, omnipresent.
Yeah. All pervading, all powerful, omniscient, omnipresent. And it's by his sanction everything happens. It's not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. So we should, Prabhupada is saying we should try to get the mercy of the Lord. Instead of getting his mercy, we are trying to compete with him. We are saying, oh no, I'm the controller. But instead we should try to hear about the Lord, his position as the Supreme. And so in that, how can we learn about him? We hear about him. Hear as much as we can from the right sources. Hear from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, from the devotees. And work for his pleasure. Karma Yoga, that's what Krishna has told Arjuna also. Whatever you do, do for me. So same here, Nārada Muni is saying, dedicating one activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita also, Yat karoshi yadashnashi. Whatever you are doing, you do it for me. What you're eating, what you're giving away, do it for me. Because the Supreme Lord, he is the proprietor of everything. So everything should be used for his pleasure. What we do is, no, we think everything belongs to us. We are not able to understand everything belongs to God. So how will we be able to understand? We hear about him, repeatedly hearing, constantly hearing. This is what Nārada Muni is saying. And Prabhupada is saying we should understand that Nārada Muni is a perfectly realized soul. It's not imagination. But he's really he's seen the truth. He's seen the Lord face to face. He's understood what he's speaking. He's realized what he's speaking. Amayo yascha bhutanaham.
Amayo yascha bhutanam.
Jayate yena suvrata.
Jayate yena suvrata.
Tad eva hi amayam dravyam.
Tat eva hi amayam dravyam.
Na punati chikitsitam.
Na punati chikitsitam. Neetu, would you like to read? Okay. So, O good soul, does not a thing applied therapeutically cure a disease which was caused by that very same thing? An expert physician treats his patient with a therapeutic diet. For example, milk preparations sometimes cause disorder of the bowels, but the very same milk converted into curd and mixed with some other remedial ingredients cures such disorders. Similarly, the threefold miseries of material existence cannot be mitigated simply by material activities. Such activities have to be spiritualized, just as by fire iron is made red hot, and thereby the action of fire begins. Similarly, the material conception of a thing is at once changed as soon as it is put into the service of the Lord. That is the secret of spiritual success. We should not try to lord it over the material nature, nor should we reject material things. The best way to make the best use of a bad bargain is to use everything in relation with the Supreme Spiritual Being. Everything is an emanation from the Supreme Spirit, and by his inconceivable power, he can convert spirit into matter and matter into spirit. Therefore, a material thing, so called, is at once turned into a spiritual force by the great will of the Lord. The necessary condition for such a change is to employ so called matter in the service of the spirit. That is the way to treat our material diseases and elevate ourselves to the spiritual plane where there is no misery, no lamentation, and no fear. When everything is thus employed in the service of the Lord, we can experience that there is nothing except the Supreme Brahman. The Vedic mantra that everything is Brahman is thus realized by us.
So Narada Muni is saying that something that causes the disease, when it's taken in a proper way, the same thing can cure the disease. So Prabhupada is helping us understand how, because we may get like upset stomach because of too much of milk products. We had maybe too many milk mithais and all that because it was festival season. But then how to cure it? Have yogurt, also is made of milk. So milk, it caused in a particular way when it was prepared, it caused the distress, and when it's prepared in a particular way, it can cure. So we just heard in the previous verse, engage everything in the service of the Lord, that the Lord is the sanctioner, that everything is happening by His will. So by His will, when we are engaging anything material, that in His service, it becomes spiritual. Because it's His will. So Prabhupada is explaining that you take a iron rod, put it in fire. It takes the quality of fire. It becomes hot. It can burn someone. So someone may say no, but still the iron is different than the fire. Okay, so touch the hot iron. That people will say, no, we cannot touch. Why? Because it's going to burn. So means it has taken the quality of the fire. So here we are trying to understand that anything, when we engage it in service of Krishna, it becomes spiritual. It's Krishna's will. As soon as it's put in his service, it becomes spiritual. And Prabhupada is saying this is the secret of spiritual success. So in the previous verse, how Srila Prabhupada was saying, whatever talents we have, whatever money we have, we should engage it in service of Krishna. And this is the way that we can spiritualize our life and come to the spiritual platform. Because on the body platform, the miseries are there. That's the nature of the world. So for us to come to the spiritual platform, so engage everything in service of Krishna. So here, best way to make use of a bad bargain. What is the bad bargain? What is the bad bargain? That we are here inside in the material world. We are inside a material body. We are spirit souls. We shouldn't be in the material body. We shouldn't be in the material world. But now that we are there, then what to do? Okay, engage everything in service of Krishna. This is how Prabhupada is explaining. Make the best use of a bad bargain. Secret of spiritual success. Rupa Goswami also says this in the Nectar of Devotion. Because we may say, no, I'm going to give up this. I'm going to give up this. This is material. I'm going to renounce. But the true renunciation is to engage everything in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada mentioned in the earlier verse, whatever talent we have, inclination we have, or money we have, should be used in the service of the Lord. And this is the way we can treat our material disease. Our material diseases, we are thinking we are the body. So when we engage in the service of the Lord, this disease, gradually we can get well, get better, then we can realize who we truly are, spirit souls. Understand our spiritual nature. So once we understand spiritual nature, no na sochati na kankshati. There's no lamentation, there's no misery, no fear. So we can see how Nārada Muni, he's practically telling us what to do. That's why it's a science. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes. Sneha, you are able to read, or you want me to read or something?
I can read. Yeah, I can read. I thought
You can
maybe
read.
Neetu wants to read. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. All right. Evam nirnam kriya yoga
Evam nirnam kriya yoga
sarve sam sriti hetava
sarve samshriti hetava
ta evatma vinashaya
ta evatma vinashaya
kalpante kalpita pare.
kalpante kalpita pare. Translation. Thus, when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work. Fruitive work which has perpetually engaged the living being is compared to the banyan tree in the Bhagavad Gita, for it is certainly very deeply rooted. As long as the propensity for enjoying the fruit of work is there, one has to continue the transmigration of the soul from one body or place to another, according to one's nature of work. The propensity for enjoyment may be turned into the desire for serving the mission of the Lord. By doing so, one's activity is changed into karma yoga, or the way by which one can attain spiritual perfection while engaging in the work for which he has a natural tendency. Here, the word Atma indicates the categories of all fruitive work. The conclusion is that when the result of all fruitive and other work is dovetailed with the service of the Lord, it will cease to generate further karma and will gradually develop into transcendental devotional service, which will not only cut off completely the root of the banyan tree of work, but will also carry the performer to the lotus feet of the Lord.
So here Nārada Muni is speaking about karma yoga. So work binds us. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, work binds us. So Krishna is saying, work as sacrifice for the pleasure of Vishnu, for the pleasure of the Lord. So this is the same thing what Nārada Muni is saying. When we are working for our pleasure, when we are working to get the result, yes, I'm going to do this because I'm going to become this, I'm going to get this. Then what happens? To get the results, again, we have to take more and more body in the material world. That becomes karma. We get entangled. So Krishna is not saying don't stop. Krishna is not saying don't work or stop working. No, he's in fact saying work. To Arjuna, you work. Same, Nārada Muni is also saying the same thing. Not to stop work, but whatever inclination one has, work in that capacity and offer the result to Krishna. And in this way, it becomes a karma. This way, it helps us to purify our heart. We don't get the result of that kind of work. So the activity may be the same, but because the result is offered to Krishna, it becomes karma yoga. Karma becomes karma yoga because you're connecting to the Supreme. So this is what Nārada Muni is saying we have to do. From karma, come to karma yoga. It will cease to generate further karma. And gradually, we can come to the platform of bhakti. Karma yoga is that I like to do something. So I'm going to do it, but offer the result to Krishna. That is karma yoga. Bhakti is, oh, Krishna will like this. Krishna likes this. So let me do it. That is bhakti. So at least let's come to the point of karma yoga. This is what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, and Nārada Muni is saying the same thing here. So how will we come to that platform? Nārada Muni was saying, hear from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, so that we can at least come to the point of karma yoga.
So karma yoga means then it's akarma, right?
Akarma, yeah. It's akarma.
The summary is that one has to, first of all, seek the association of pure devotees who not only are learned in the Vedanta, but are self-realized souls and unalloyed devotees of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. In that association, the neophyte devotees must render loving service physically and mentally without reservation. This service attitude will induce the great souls to be more favorable in bestowing their mercy, which injects the neophyte with all the transcendental qualities of the pure devotees. Gradually, this is developed into a strong attachment to hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which makes him able to catch up the constitutional position of the gross and subtle bodies, and beyond them, the knowledge of the pure soul and his eternal relation with the Supreme Soul, the personality of Godhead. After the relation is ascertained, by establishment of the eternal relation, pure devotional service to the Lord begins, gradually developing into perfect knowledge of the personality of Godhead beyond the purview of impersonal Brahman, and localized Paramatma. By such Purushottama Yoga, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one is made perfect even during the present corporeal existence, and one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage. Such is the gradual development by association of pure devotees.
So here Prabhupada is telling us step by step. So what is the first step he's saying?
Association with pure devotees.
Yeah, association with the pure devotees. So what is, now he's also saying the qualities of the devotees. That, what? That they have?
They have knowledge of the Vedanta, right?
Yeah, they have knowledge on the Vedanta, and they are
self-realized souls.
self-realized. Yeah, means they are liberated. The pure devotees, they are liberated. Unalloyed devotees means Ananya Bhakt, pure devotees of Lord Krishna. Okay, then now in that association, what should we do?
Render loving service physically and mentally.
Render physically and mentally. So then what happens? Because as a result of engaging in service,
Bhakti, right? Mercy.
we get the mercy of the pure devotees. We attract their mercy because of our service attitude. So by this mercy, then we can get their transcendental qualities. So it's their mercy, like how Nārada Muni, he was serving the devotees. He had his remnants and he was getting those qualities. He got a desire to hear about the Lord. So then what this gradually develops into
strong attachment to hearing the pastimes, transcendental pastimes of the Lord.
Yeah. So attachment to hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And then what happens as a result of this? One is able to understand
your constitutional position.
Yeah.
That of the gross sense.
Subtle bodies, yeah. So means he's able to understand, oh, I'm not the body, I'm inside the body, there is a gross body, there's a subtle body. He's able to understand that, oh, I'm the soul. He's able to understand that he has an eternal relationship with God, with the Supreme Soul. That relationship, Jivera Swarubhai Krishna Nityadas, Lord Chaitanya is saying that every soul is eternally a servant of Krishna. So when one realizes this relationship, when one realizes this, then one gradually gets perfect knowledge of Bhagwan. One rises above the impersonal concept. One rises above the Paramatma concept. One gets perfect knowledge of the position of the Supreme Lord in Tattva, the truth. So then Prabhupada is pointing out that by engaging in such a way, even though we are living in this material world, in this material body, one can rise up to the platform of pure devotional service. Here one exhibits all the good qualities of the Lord to the highest percentage, means perfection. One can become perfect, become liberated. That's 78% of the qualities of the Lord, right? It said. All the 50 qualities one can exhibit, one can revive those qualities. So Prabhupada is helping us understand gradually, step by step, by associating of pure devotees, by associating with pure devotees, we can also become pure like them. We can also become pure devotees like them. By association, by rendering service in their association, by hearing and chanting. So like the full gradual process here is given by Prabhupada. Any comments?
No, it's well, it's well put. Like how, gradually you can elevate, right? You can go higher and reach
Yes.
the liberated platform, right?
Yeah, that's what I think. I thought so too. You know how all the steps, all the stages Prabhupada is giving step by step. So nicely put.
Nicely put. Yeah.
Yeah. Yad atra kriyate karma.
Yat atra kriyate karma.
Bhagavad paritoshanam.
Bhagavad paritoshanam.
Jnanam yattad adhinam hi.
Jnanam yattad etat adinam hi
Bhakti Yoga Samanvitam.
bhakti yoga samanvitam. Translation. Whatever work is done here in this life for the satisfaction of the mission of the Lord is called Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service to the Lord, and what is called knowledge becomes a concomitant factor. The general and popular notion is that by discharging fruitive work in terms of the direction of the scriptures, one becomes perfectly able to acquire transcendental knowledge for spiritual realization. Bhakti Yoga is considered by some to be another form of karma, but factually, Bhakti Yoga is above both karma and jnana. Bhakti Yoga is independent of jnana or karma. On the other hand, jnana and karma are dependent on Bhakti Yoga. This Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga, as recommended by Sri Nārada to Vyasa, is specifically recommended because the principle is to satisfy the Lord. The Lord does not want his sons, the living beings, to suffer the threefold miseries of life. He desires that all of them come to him and live with him. But going back to Godhead means that one must purify himself from material infections. When work is performed, therefore, to satisfy the Lord, the performer becomes gradually purified from the material affection. This purification means attainment of spiritual knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is dependent on karma or work done on behalf of the Lord. Other knowledge, being devoid of bhakti yoga or satisfaction of the Lord, cannot lead one back to the kingdom of God, which means that it cannot even offer salvation, as already explained in connection with the stanza. Neshkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam. The conclusion is that a devotee engaged in the unalloyed service of the Lord, specifically in hearing and chanting of his transcendental glories, becomes simultaneously spiritually enlightened by the divine grace, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita.
So here, Narad Muni is saying, then working for the satisfaction of the Lord. Prabhupada is saying that usually people think that when one works according to the karma kan, doing the right rituals and all the rites, then one can get transcendental knowledge. So one may think that bhakti yoga is also some kind of karma. But we have to understand bhakti yoga is, as we were saying, no, that karma yoga is when we are doing what we like to do, offering it to the Lord, offering the result to the Lord. So karma yoga is already above karma. So it's also above Gyan. And then Krishna is speaking in the Bhagavad Gita about this yoga ladder. So one begins with karma kand, karma, then comes to the platform of Gyan. Then one has to come to the platform of bhakti. Or one can take directly to bhakti to satisfy the Lord. So one may try any process, jnana, karma, or yoga, but one has to come to point to satisfy the Lord because He is the ultimate sanctioner. So to get the result of jnana, one has to satisfy the Lord to get the result of the jnana or to get the result of the yoga. So to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The Lord, He wants us to come back to Him. It's not that He wants us to suffer here in the material world. He knows. He's the creator of the material world. He knows there are miseries here. He wants us to come and enjoy and live with Him in the spiritual world. And so He Himself is telling us how we have to act. He's giving us this knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita that offer the results to the Lord. Because the more we are attached, why He's saying that? Because our attachment is what's keeping us here in the material world. But when we can start working for the pleasure of God, our attachment to the material world will gradually reduce, and proportionately our attachment to Krishna will increase. So, knowledge. This purification means attainment of spiritual knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is dependent on karma or work done on behalf of the Lord. So, what is real knowledge is when we are hearing about God, hearing about Him from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. That is real knowledge. Not that we speculate on something. That speculation kind of knowledge is not going to lead us anywhere, but rather hearing about the Lord, chanting His names. The spiritual knowledge is revealed to us. Krishna says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So when Krishna is saying one is engaged in specifically hearing, chanting, I'm sorry, for His pleasure. I'm sorry, for His pleasure, unalloyed service, for the pleasure of the Lord. He gives His mercy, and one can realize the spiritual knowledge. Kurvana yatra karmani.
Kurvana yatra karmani.
Bhagavad Chikshaya Sakrit.
Bhagavad Chikshaya Sakrit.
Rananti guna namani.
Grinanti guna namani.
Krishnasya nusmaranti cha.
Krishnasya smaranti cha. While performing duties according to the order of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one constantly remembers Him, His names, and His qualities. An expert devotee of the Lord can mold his life in such a way that while performing all kinds of duties, either for this or the next life, he can constantly remember the Lord's name, fame, qualities, etc. The order of the Lord is distinctly there in the Bhagavad Gita. One should work only for the Lord in all spheres of life. In every sphere of life, the Lord should be situated as the proprietor. According to the Vedic rites, even in the worship of some demigods like Indra, Brahma, Saraswati, and Ganesha, the system is that in all circumstances, the representation of Vishnu must be there as Yagneshwara, or the controlling power of such sacrifices. It is recommended that a particular demigod be worshipped for a particular purpose. But still, the presence of Vishnu is compulsory in order to make the function proper.
So everything done for the pleasure of the Lord. And Krishna is saying this in Bhagavad Gita, that whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, you do it for me. So the same thing is again now, because why it's being repeated, so that we can actually come to this platform. So we can come to do this. So Prabhupada is saying that there are some demigod worship also, but those worship is also proper only when Lord Vishnu is there. So the understanding that all the demigods are parts and parcels of Lord Vishnu. So it may be for a particular demigod the worship, but still Lord Vishnu is the principal deity who must be satisfied.
Apart from such Vedic duties, even in our ordinary dealings, for example, in our household affairs or in our business or profession, we must consider that the result of all activities must be given over to the Supreme Enjoyer, Lord Krishna. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has declared himself to be the supreme enjoyer of everything, the supreme proprietor of every planet, and the supreme friend of all beings. No one else but Lord Sri Krishna can claim to be the proprietor of everything within his creation. A pure devotee remembers this constantly, and in doing so, he repeats the transcendental name, fame, and qualities of the Lord, which means that he is constantly in touch with the Lord. The Lord is identical with his name, fame, etc., and therefore to be associated with his name, fame, etc., constantly means actually to associate with the Lord.
So first, Prabhupada explained that doing those worship, like even while worshiping demigods, Lord Vishnu should be first worshipped. Then he's explaining even in our business or household affairs or anything, to understand Krishna's position, that Krishna Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, that he's the supreme benefactor, he's the proprietor of everything, all the planets, all the demigods, all the penances, austerities, sacrifices are meant for his satisfaction. So understanding this and constantly chanting his glories, remembering about him, doing our duties in that way. So the pure devotee does that. He's remembering the position of the Lord and he's glorifying the Lord. So glorifying the Lord even when we are doing any of our other duties which need to be performed.
The major portion of our monetary income, not less than 50%, must be spent to carry out the order of Lord Krishna. Not only should we give the profit of our earning to this cause, but we must also arrange to preach this cult of devotion to others, because that is also one of the orders of the Lord. The Lord definitely says that no one is more dear to him than one who is always engaged in the preaching work of the Lord's name and fame all over the world. The, scient- the scientific discoveries of the material world can also be equally engaged in carrying out his order. He wants the message of the Bhagavad Gita to be preached amongst his devotees. It may not be so done amongst those who have no credit of austerities, charity, education, etc. Therefore, the attempt must go on to convert unwilling men to become his devotees. Lord Chaitanya has taught a very simple method in this connection. He has taught the lesson for preaching the transcendental message through singing, dancing, and refreshment. As such, 50% of our income may be spent for this purpose. In this fallen age of quarrel and dissension, if only the leading and wealthy persons of society agree to spend 50% of their income in the service of the Lord as it is taught by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is absolute certainty of converting this hell of pandemonium to the transcendental abode of the Lord. No one will disagree to partake in a function where good singing, dancing, and refreshment are administered. Everyone will attend such a function, and everyone is sure to feel individually the transcendental presence of the Lord. This alone will help the attendants associate with the Lord and thereby purify themselves in spiritual realization. The only condition for successfully executing such spiritual activity is that they must be conducted under the guidance of a pure devotee who is completely free from all mundane desires, fruitive activities, and dry speculations about the nature of the Lord. No one has to discover the nature of the Lord. It is already spoken by the Lord Himself in the Bhagavad Gita, especially, and in all other Vedic literatures generally. We have simply to accept them in toto and abide by the orders of the Lord. That will guide us to the path of perfection. One can remain in his own position. No one has to change his position, especially in this age of variegated difficulties. The only condition is that one must give up the habit of dry speculation aimed at becoming one with the Lord. And after giving up such lofty, puffed up vanities, one may very submissively receive the orders of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam from the lips of a bona fide devotee whose qualification is mentioned above. That will make everything successful without a doubt.
So Prabhupada is explaining here. So we were hearing first that, okay, even if one is doing demigod worship, understand that Lord Vishnu has to be satisfied first. He has to be worshipped. Then when one is doing the material duties, any duty it may be, constantly remember and chant the glories of the Supreme Lord, understanding his position as Supreme Proprietor. And then Srila Prabhupada is saying the major portion of one's income, 50%, should be spent to propagate this Krishna consciousness movement so that everyone can participate in hearing and chanting about the Lord, because money is required. So Prabhupada is saying that if the leaders, if the wealthy men at least, if they can engage 50%, then this preaching work can go on, and it can give provide a suitable environment for everyone to hear, to chant about the Lord, and to feel the presence of the Lord. So Rupa Goswami had set this example. When he retired, he donated 50% to the devotees, and then from the balance 50%, 25% he gave to his family, and 25% he kept for emergencies. So in this age, one may not be able to actually practically donate 50% because things are different. So at least whatever one can do to support the Krishna consciousness movement, to so the preaching work can go on, so that everyone can participate in this. Prabhupada is saying we don't need to change our position. That's what Lord Chaitanya said, that we don't need to give up anything. Wherever we are, we stay, because this age, Kali, is not an easy age to be in. So stay where we are, give up the desire to become God, and hear from Bhagavad Gita, from Bhagavatam, from the devotees. And Prabhupada is pointing out that such preaching work should go on under the guidance of a pure devotee. The preaching work, yeah. So Lord Chaitanya also said to that Brahmana who wanted to give up his family life, no, you stay where you are. You hear about the Lord, you chant about the Lord, and wherever you go, you speak to them about the Lord, about Krishna. Yare dekha tare kaha Krishna upadesh. So this is what we are being recommended to do. Submissively receive the orders of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, hearing from the devotee. So we'll stop here for today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Did you want to add anything? Any comment?
No.
Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you for listening and enjoying.